Hello, everyone, and welcome into Sports Talk Chicago right here on WLS AM 890. Happy Saturday. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I hope you had a wonderful Halloween. We're talking Chicago Bears football for the next hour, so make sure you stay here, tune in, and let's get to the episode. Chicago Bears lose 18-15 to the Washington Commanders on a last-second Hail Mary pass. Where shall we begin? One, the Chicago Bears are a national embarrassment. Still running around across national media right now. There's a video maybe of me on TikTok or Facebook with a bunch of Bears fans. They're pulling their hair out. Me, you can just see the soul leaving my body. Make sure you go on socials and check that out if you want to. We're going to dive into a bunch of different stuff here. The first one I want to do is the easy one. I think a lot of people, and especially in our modern times, we love to get involved with, is this the worst loss that you've ever seen as a Bears fan? Is this the worst loss in Bears history? Is this the worst thing that's ever happened since Chernobyl? No, it's not. I've been a Bears fan for a long time. I've seen a lot of bad stuff. This is not the worst loss. I mean, again, it's shocking. It's stunning. The percentages of it happening are very low, but it certainly is not the worst loss in Chicago Bears history. Worst loss as a Bears fan, I'm just going to list these off. I don't really think I have a power ranking because I didn't really want to cry while I did preparation for this episode today. So just a handful of losses that I think were worse than this particular loss. And again, comment and question below if you're watching us on YouTube with your top 5 worst losses of all time if you want to walk down that awful, awful path. So what are some of the worst losses of my Bears lifetime? I'm going to try and keep it within the last 25 years, try and keep it within this millennia, within this century, because, man, we could pull up some beauties, that's for sure. The first and the obvious one, I think the one that everyone's trying to compare this loss to, which I don't think holds a candle, is the double doink. Let me ask you a question. Was Tyreek Stevenson on Good Morning America the next morning talking about how hurtful the comments were and how bad the loss was for him, like Cody Parkey was? No, he wasn't. Again, that was a playoff game. Very eerily similar, though, right? The defense played great for the most part during that game. The offense was terrible. We had a quarterback at the time that we were hoping to have a long, fruitful relationship with. He came back, had a better fourth quarter, led us down the field for a couple drives, set us up in a position to win a game. Does that sound familiar? And then, obviously, tragedy strikes. Another one, too, as well, is a lot of people are throwing out the Chris Conte game. Again, that was Mark Trestman. Chicago Bears, all they had to do was beat the Green Bay Packers to make it to the playoffs. Jay Cutler throws a touchdown early in the fourth quarter that no one wants to remember to actually put the Bears ahead. And then Aaron Rodgers, of course, Chris Conte blows the coverage. Randall Cobb scores a touchdown. The other funny one about that, too, is that was a painful couple weeks for Bears fans because if you roll it back the week before, all they had to do was beat the Eagles in Philadelphia, the Chip Kelly Eagles at the time, and Mark Trestman's team got absolutely obliterated from the very second they took the field and lost 54-11. Another bad loss. I like to think also personally that I'd like to rank and throw in there the week 1 losses to the Green Bay Packers, one coming in 2019 after that 2018 season. I think a lot of people, including sharps across America, had the Chicago Bears making the playoffs, possibly winning the NFC, possibly even competing and winning a Super Bowl at the time. And they came out flat, looked awful, couldn't score, and then that led to a really frustrating 8-8 season. And then roll it forward to last year, 2023, the make-or-break year for Justin Fields against the Green Bay Packers. We're ready to roll. He's about to have his breakout season. Played terrible. Didn't get it done. Also a really bad loss. 2009, a Bears win and get in. Kyle Orton at the helm. All they had to do was beat the Houston Texans in Houston. They blew a 10-point first half lead, 21 unanswered points, lost 31-24. And, of course, the major ones. Jay gets hurt in the NFC Championship game. Caleb Haney comes in. B.J. Raji scores a touchdown. We lose. We don't go to the Super Bowl. And, of course, let's not forget the Chicago Bears lose the Super Bowl. By far a worse loss than what happened in Week 8 against the Washington Commanders in a game that, let's be honest, we had no business even being in the first place. Caleb plays a strong fourth quarter. We're going to get into all this stuff. They take the lead 15-12. and then the Washington Commanders with 25 seconds throw a Hail Mary, score. Is it one of the more surprising losses? Of course. Does it hurt? You betcha. Is it going to possibly haunt us the rest of the season? Possibly. But when it comes to the worst loss as a Bears fan in Bears history, come on. Chump change. We've seen it all. We've seen more before. And if you haven't, then, well, I apologize. You should still be a Bears fan and still support the team. But I've got to tell you, this stuff, it tends to happen when you're a Chicago Bears fan. Okay, here we go. Got a lot of comments and questions surrounding, obviously, the father of this Sports Talk Chicago channel, John. There is going to be a separate video. I'm going to talk about him a little bit, but I also want to say that a lot of people were saying, man, I can't wait to hear what John Zaghloul's rants are going to be like after this loss. Where is the rant? Where is the anger? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you asked for it, and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it my own way as the best of my ability. But to quote the great David Bowie, let's rant. Okay. Matt Eberflus, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to even touch Tyreek Stevenson at this time because he's one player in a cog in a huge engine of a system. And guess what? He also gets an opportunity to come back next week, make some plays, intercept some passes, and make a little amends for him not paying attention, him showboating and taunting the fans while the play is being snapped and not being positioned to succeed. But guys, this is all about the head coach, Matt Eberflus. And if you've been following me all summer and supporting Sports Talk Chicago, thank you very much. But this is not news to you. The coach ain't it. He's not the future of the Chicago Bears. I'm sorry. And here's where it happens. When you hire a head coach, especially one that's never done it before, you always want to start with a clean slate. And then you want to then incrementally try and find examples and moments, good or bad, that try and help you determine whether he is a good head coach, whether he is the type of head coach that can lead you to the playoffs, and whether he's the type of head coach that can take you to a Super Bowl, right? Okay. Matt Eberflus, I get it. We can do it all we want to. The first year was a trash year. We tried to tank. Congratulations, we did. The second year, were we ready to win? No. We blew 10-point fourth quarter leads like it was going out of style. These are facts. These are numbers. Matt Eberflus is 3-17 in road games. 3-17. The mark of a good head coach is picking up a good road win every once in a while. 3-17 on road games, and then of course, the Chicago Tribune's Brad Biggs comes up with a great point. He has not won a Sunday road game yet as a head coach. Make that make sense. So yes, Justin Fields, when he beats the Steelers in Pittsburgh on a Sunday night or a Monday night, that counts, sure. He has not won a Sunday road game as a head coach. And I've been railing on him on the opposite end of the timeout spectrum. The first one was I think he burns way too many of them, and I think he burns them up on bad challenges. I've talked about this a lot. In the second half, and Washington learned this too as well, and they got away with it, that when you burn early timeouts in the second half on delay of games and not getting lined up properly, it can come back and bite you in the butt. Matt Eberflus has had to learn that the hard way too as well. But what I didn't realize was that Matt Eberflus also doesn't know how to use his timeouts when he actually has them at his disposal. That's the worst part. He carries challenges and he carries timeouts into next week like they're gift certificates at a restaurant. It's unbelievable. When you have 3 timeouts in the second half of a game, you can use them in a lot of different ways. And one of them is to protect you from bad matchups and bad looks in the game's most precious moments. Analogy, look at basketball. Whenever there is an inbounds play with 5 seconds to go, 3 seconds to go, they hand the ball to the opposition. He puts the ball over his head, and then our team calls timeout so we can look and assess at what kind of matchup and what kind of play they're trying to run. How are they setting this up? Chicago Bears did not do that. The Chicago Bears, for whatever reason, didn't have a coaching staff that was looking at the alignment of their own defense before it was snapped on that Hail Mary. They would have seen that Tyreek Stevenson was 5 yards off the play in the corner talking to the fans, taunting who he says he was talking to Bears fans, but we all know he was taunting Washington Commanders fans because he thought he had the game in the bag. You could have called a timeout there. It's absolutely unbelievable. Matt Eberflus, not just that as well. When you are the head coach of the football team, I don't care if you're defensive-minded or you're defensive coordinator, you are the CEO of every single aspect of your team, which means that you get to hear every single offensive call. And if you don't like what you hear, defensive guru, you can also call a timeout and reset. Or you could tell the offensive coordinator, don't call that play. First one is in the red zone, when we should be burning clock, we somehow either allowed Caleb to check into a throw or we called a throw on 1st and goal. We allowed a 13-yard gain to get it to 2 seconds, so they had the opportunity to throw up a Hail Mary. We allowed Tyreek Stevenson to line up the way that he did. If you don't like the look, call a timeout. We had 3 of them. We don't get to use those this week against the Arizona Cardinals, man. And then finally, the Doug Kramer play. Explain this to me, Bears fans. Did the Chicago Bears have like non-refundable studio time booked because they were going to like shoot and record the next Super Bowl shuffle with this Doug Kramer thing? Matt Eberflus after the game says, well, we had confidence in that play. We ran it in practice. Okay, that's awesome. But you can't tell me right now that there are 30 different plays that you could have ran in that moment that probably had a higher success rate than that awful call that you picked in that moment. A lot of people have been on it if you haven't heard it. But look, I'm in agreement with the concept of, I'm not saying you never run that play. We've had Doug Kramer out there in multiple situations this year. He's been a fullback that's led to a lot of successful moments for the Chicago Bears in the red zone. It's turned into a bit of a bread and butter play. Not upset with that. But what a lot of people have said, and I'm in agreement with, is you never, ever, ever run that play when you are behind in a game. You do that for funsies when you're up 2 scores. You do that when the game is in hand by, I'm saying, at least 10, 14, 16, 17 points, and you do it just because you want to throw a look out there for other teams to scout and take into account now that you run that formation a lot. You do not put the ball, I can't even believe I'm saying this, you do not put the ball into Doug Kramer's hands when you are losing in a game that you've been getting your head kicked in the whole time, and now you're trying to get back into it and take the lead. I don't think Doug Kramer in those situations. Do you, Bears fans? For whatever reason, Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron did. Again, this comes back to Matt Eberflus. Look, I think he's a fine man, right? I think the players like him and want to play for him, right? I think he's a good defensive coordinator, right? I don't think he's a good head coach. I don't think he's going to take you where you want to go. And again, this phrase that I keep using with Matt Eberflus, and I have to use it again this week, is that his coaching style in the NFL game is, again, slow to the switch. He has slow starts to games, to seasons, and to situations. We see it time and time again. Do you want to point to the fact that we can't score points in the first quarter? Slow start. Do you want to point to the fact that, again, we weren't really ready to play again this season, even though we played a lot of our guys in the preseason? So don't tell me it's the lack of the reps on the players. It's the lack of getting them ready and prepared. Slow starts the games, slow starts the seasons, and now slow to situations, bad at challenges. Doesn't see these moments when maybe, hey, the matchup isn't in our favor. Call timeout, reset, refocus everybody. Get your hands around the neck of the situation. I tell you, my beautiful wife is a huge Steelers fan. I watch a lot of Steelers football over the last 6 to 7 years. And I guarantee you, I don't even care. You could blindfold Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is calling a timeout before that Hail Mary play. Before that Hail Mary play, Mike Tomlin is calling a timeout there. Why? Just to line everybody up. Remember, refocus, realign. This is what we need to do. This is the play. Every play matters. And look, I got to tell you, I am a one every single second guy. I'm an every single second sports fan, positive and negative. Negative side, when the Chicago Bears scored, 25 seconds left, I've watched enough football. I watched the Buffalo Bills Kansas City Chiefs game from a couple years ago. Crazy stuff happens. Every second counts. The game was not in hand until it went 0-0 on the clock. I was worried. I was nervous. I was more nervous that they were going to be able to figure out a way to kick a 55, 58-yard field goal and send it into overtime more than I was worried that they were going to throw a Hail Mary, something like lightning striking, something like that will never, ever happen again, like getting struck by lightning. And, oh, yeah, by the way, your defensive back, Tyreek Stevenson, is in the backyard right now swinging around a metallic bat. I didn't see that one coming. I was more worried about the field goal. But I am an every second sports fan, and I could smell that coming from a mile away. On the opposite end, you might not agree with me, but as an every second sports guy, my baseball team could be down 5 runs, bottom of the 9th inning, 2 outs, 0-2 count on our number 9 hitter. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still trying to think of ways to get our team back into the game. It ain't over till it's over with me. And that's just who I am, good or bad. And in this situation, I was leaning on the bad because, hey, it's the Chicago Bears. And, hey, their head coach is Matt Eberflus. Again, good dude. Players like playing for him. Is that such a good thing? I'm not even so sure. But he is not a good head coach. He ain't it. Even from the defensive side of things, we have a hard time beating competent quarterbacks. The list of quarterbacks that Matt Eberflus has beaten is not going to blow your hair back. And we really need to start asking ourselves the question of, is he providing enough examples that are positive from a coach schematic standpoint that he is the guy who's going to take us to where we want to go? Because where do we want to go? We want to win playoff games. We obviously want to win a Super Bowl, and we want to do it with Caleb Williams under center for the next 10 to 15 years. And because you do have a player like Caleb Williams who are all hoping and thinking and praying that he's the guy of the future, to protect that investment, we can't just settle for fine. And we have to ask ourselves, is this the guy that is going to be the type of coach that's going to take us to where we want to go? And based on examples, evidence, none more glaring than what just happened in that 18 to 15 loss to the Washington Commanders, was that Matt Eberflus is not up to the task. What are the other options? I mean, we'll get into that for another episode. I would love to have the conversation, obviously, about Mike Vrabel. I'd love to have the conversation about whether Kevin Stefanski, who's won Coach of the Year twice in Cleveland, who took Baker Mayfield teams to the playoffs multiple times, he might be on the hot seat. He might be out. Mike Vrabel might be in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski is available. I'm willing to have that conversation. Of course, Ben Johnson is the hot name right now. A lot of interesting narratives about Ben Johnson that we'll probably get into as the season goes on, and certainly into the offseason, depending on what Ryan Poles decides to do with Matt Eberflus. But again, Ben Johnson is a guy that's never done it before. He's also a guy who has a pedigree of being a great coordinator, but we have no idea what he's like as a head coach. Do we want to have the Bill Belichick conversation? I'm not ready to do it yet. That's a longer one. Comment and question below if you want to hear me do more on that, because I certainly have some thoughts there on why not even consider it. Is that so far off the beaten path? And I'm sorry, I'm going to keep railing on Matt Eberflus this entire episode, man. We are going to get into Caleb Williams because I don't think he played very well. Obviously, he put some things together in the fourth quarter. Our offensive line is a total mess right now. I am going to try and figure out a way to turn the page. But, man, again, this comes back to the head coach. And it's not just one game. It's a bunch of games that we're starting to put together here. And on the other side of the break, I'm going to walk you through what I think hypothetically, ideally, is the type of rookie QB checklist that we should be doing right now for Caleb Williams and asking ourselves, do the Chicago Bears as an organization, do they have it? Are they working towards it? And if they don't, what are we going to do about it? The Bears are 4-3. Plenty of time to figure this thing out. There's also plenty of time for Matt Eberflus to shut my mouth and provide some examples beyond just wins and losses. Show me within games that you are protecting your players by knowing your personnel, knowing your situation, and using the levers and the pulleys that are given to you as a head coach to protect or even advance your team in the middle of a game. This goes beyond wins and losses with Matt Eberflus. This is all in-game stuff. And no offense, man, I've played Madden, the video game, for years and years and years. And some of this stuff, I know. and he's not pulling it off. And it just makes me think that when the bullets are flying and when there's a lot going on in the game, I just don't think that he has that periphery that some NFL coaches are blessed to have that allows him to, in those situations, know exactly what his team needs to do and what kind of time he either needs to take off or add to continue to give his players the best chance to succeed. And another problem is when you have a defensive coordinator, you can't always just cede control to the offensive coordinator because then guess what? You're not really a head coach. You're just kind of a co-coach with the offensive coordinator. So when you're allowing him to do a run play to Doug Kramer, you're signing off on that too as well. I get it. You can practice it all you want, but that situation, that is tone deaf. Is NFL stupid. And that's the bummer with it right now. And again, the Chicago Bears might find themselves in a similar position that we've been in before with a young quarterback whose rookie year, he has a coach, and by year 2, different coach. Does that sound familiar? Cough, cough. Mitch Trubisky, John Fox, immediately over to Matt Nagy. Justin Fields, cough, cough. 1 year, Matt Nagy. Next thing you know, moves on over. Matt Eberflus. Are we really going to do it again? We might have to. Because I'm sorry, I just don't think Matt Eberflus ain't it. A lot of you might be saying, man, I'm not spending enough time on Tyreek Stevenson. Look, here's what I'll say. Of course, it's an awful look. We're never going to get it out of our minds. And unfortunately, just like Milton Bradley forgetting how many outs there are on the inning, this thing is going to haunt him for quite some time. But the part about it that I'm trying to keep a little bit of some perspective on, because I'm super riled up about Matt Eberflus in the here and now, is that there was a great comment made by former Bears linebacker who now just happens to be a coworker of mine, which I'm very grateful for, and it's very cool. It's Lance Briggs. And as a former player, he did try and advocate and remind people that we try and only remember Tyreek Stevenson being a bonehead at the end of the game, Tyreek Stevenson sticking his finger into the helmet of another dude, getting a personal foul penalty. Those are dumb penalties. They hurt your team, not excusing them at all. But I'm also not going to not acknowledge the guy made a couple game-saving tackles during the course of the game. He's a good player with a lot of talent. He's taken on a lot in the NFL. I mean, teams go after him. Teams want nothing to do with Jalen Johnson. They want everything to do with Tyreek Stevenson. And at times, the dude has gotten lit up pretty good. But there's been other times where I've really enjoyed his toughness and his resiliency. And we saw it in the second half of the year where he started making some plays. And I thought he's had a pretty good season. And I just can't erase 4 quarters of what I think was pretty solid football off of 2 bonehead plays. Of course, did the last play basically factually lose you the game? It did. But I'm putting this more on the bigger picture stuff of Matt Eberflus. I mean, I'm not going to blame the whole loss on a player making a really, really, really arrogant mistake. There should be checks and balances in place for that, and the head coach should at least know his personnel enough to be able to protect from his players doing idiot things. You can't stop a player from punching a dude in the helmet, but you can certainly stop a player from being out of position. It's called calling a timeout, something that they had 3 of them heading into the end of that. So I just can't with Tyreek Stevenson. I am going to say, though, that at this time, Matt Eberflus, he ain't it. I'm going to root for him this season. I really do hope that we go to the playoffs. I hope that he proves me wrong. I hope that we win a playoff game. But even if we do, my inclination right now is to believe that we are going to go as far as we're going to go into that playoff, hopefully future. We're going to do it because of the talent of the players, the talent of the quarterback, the talent of the defense as a collective, not because our head coach is giving some sort of schematic advantage to us right now. And we need all the help that we can get. And Matt Eberflus, he just is not providing it. I don't think he's a good head coach, and I just don't think he's going to take us to where we want to go. Coming back here on Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos right here on WLS AM 890. You can also follow us on our YouTube page, like, comment, and subscribe to our channel at Sports Talk Chicago, or follow us on our socials at Sports Talk Chi. Coming out on the other side of the break here, I got a little fired up. I maybe blacked out for a couple of moments there. I hope that was decent content. But yeah, with the Matt Eberflus situation, this is definitely something to monitor. We are back in this situation again, Bears fans. We are asking serious questions about the head coach. Chicago Bears continue to struggle to get it right. And maybe my final thought on it before we get to our rookie checklist here is I did find it very, very interesting that not just that night, but that very next morning, a lot of news leaking out about Ben Johnson, about how he wanted the Bears job. He was the number 1 pick. It was his number 1 choice. If he could go to a team, it would have been the Chicago Bears with that number 1 pick. Whether that has changed, I don't know, right? Did he maybe secretly want Jaden Daniels and not Caleb Williams? Maybe he wanted Caleb Williams. That is not something that we're willing to speculate on at this time. But then when Albert Breer confirms that report the next morning, who honestly is as tied in and locked in and dialed in, whatever you want to call it, to Ryan Poles in that front office, it's something to keep an eye on moving forward into the future. That if they do move on from Matt Eberflus, I would think that immediately Ben Johnson would probably be the number 1 pick or the number 1 target for the Chicago Bears if they were to move on. But as we continue through this right now, look, they got a game coming up this weekend. We're going to give you a wonderful preview for it. We're going to try and get back into the win column, but I just want to sit here in this moment for a little bit longer and ask another big picture question. When you get the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, you get the opportunity to pick whatever quarterback that you want, and Ryan Poles decided, and I believe rightfully so, to select Caleb Williams as the future of the Bears franchise. When you're setting out the course for this journey, and you're now 7 games into his NFL career, what are some of the checklists? What are some of the things? What's the grocery list, if you will, that you would want for your rookie quarterback to have the best chance at success moving forward? Can you protect, guardrail, insulate, prop up your rookie quarterback with certain things? And this is in no particular order, but I am going to read off some things that I would put onto my rookie quarterback checklist that I would hope that they would have in place to help your quarterback mature, progress, and get to the part of his potential that you want to see as quickly as possible. And let's see how the Chicago Bears are doing in that regard. The first one is the obvious one. On my rookie quarterback checklist, I have an offensive line that protects the quarterback. Be honest with yourself. Do the Chicago Bears have that right now? No, they do not. And what's worse is that offensive line is dealing with a lot of injuries right now. It starts with Braxton Jones at left tackle, a solid player who I don't think you want to build your franchise around. Hurts his knee in the Commanders game. Looks like he's going to miss 1 to 2 weeks. Karan Amengaji now, who started the year on injured reserve, a rookie is slated to play left tackle against the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think that's great news. Tevin Jenkins, a player that we think has a lot of talent, can't stay healthy, left the game again against the Washington Commanders. As of this taping right now, don't know his availability. We'll have to see how he practices throughout the week. At center, Coleman Shelton, a bargain basement selection. At minimum, has been maybe a touch better than Lucas Patrick, but I don't think you're going to be building your franchise around him. At right guard, you gave Nate Davis $10 million. Not even heard his name the last couple of weeks. Matt Pryor comes in. They've had a little Bill Murray, too, as well. Bill Murray is now hurt. They signed Ryan Bates, they traded for Ryan Bates. He spent some time on IR. Hopefully he'll be healthy. Larry Borum, swing guy, also coming off IR as well. Matt Eberflus decided not to make him active in this game. Instead, made Travis Homer active in the game instead. Make that make sense personnel-wise. I'm not exactly sure what percentages it is Ryan pulls on game day or Matt Eberflus, how they collaborate to find out the final man roster on a week-to-week basis. But you can't tell me that you heard Travis Homer's name in this one last week. Maybe could have used an extra offensive lineman there. And then Darnell Wright, probably the only piece that we're willing to build around, a guy that was taken in the first round. I think a guy that's kind of bounced back, and he's played better than I think what some of the training camp reports and some of the previews were for him coming into the season about him maybe taking a step back. I think he's been fine and solid. So offensive line that protects the quarterback, that is a no for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears right now. Next one. When you have a young quarterback, sometimes you want to get him comfortable as quick as you can. And what better to do that than, a fast start to a football game? Couple of quick throws, some easy completions, maybe get some points on the board, get the confidence, get the momentum rolling. So the next one is structured, competent starts to games to get a rookie comfortable. The Chicago Bears are at the bottom of the NFL in offensive football in the first quarter of games. Bottom of the NFL in offensive scoring in the first quarter of games. They're in the top 5 in the second half of scoring points. I get that. That's fine. But getting off to a strong start, competent start, no, it feels like a lot of times that Caleb Williams has to eat a couple 3-and-outs and mentally pick himself off the mat just to get to the part where he can start to do some things, start to feel good about himself. Is that really how your rookie quarterback is supposed to feel every single game? Behind the 8 ball? So that's a no. 0 for 2. With my rookie quarterback checklist, I think sometimes having a running game would be a great way to take the pressure off of a young quarterback so he doesn't have to feel like he's carrying the load every single offensive drive. And this one, I'm going to give this one a yes. I am. Again, DeAndre Swift continues to defy my criticism at every single step of the way, and I'm happy to eat crow on this one. Nothing was going on in that Commanders game, and next thing you know, he bounces it outside, turns a corner, takes it upfield, and scores a touchdown. To this part of the game, I think the Chicago Bears have done a good to decent job of surrounding our rookie quarterback with very capable running backs, and it isn't just one guy like DeAndre Swift. I like what I've seen from Roschon Johnson. I like what we would see from Khalil Herbert, if he had to play in a pinch in a game. Is it the best running game in the NFL? No, but I'm not looking for the best. I'm just looking for, do we have something that is established that I can check a box and say this is something that we have in a place that can be positioned to help our quarterback, our rookie quarterback, succeed right now? When it comes to running game, I think the Chicago Bears have it a little bit. So 1 for 3. We're hitting Mark Grace right now in our rookie QB checklist right now with the Chicago Bears. Sports Talk Chicago here on WLS AM 890 with Joey Christopoulos. Let's keep on moving here. Intimate knowledge of your personnel. I'm skeptical on this one. There's a lot going on from Week 1, not seeing anything from Cole Kmet, overly featuring Gerald Everett at times in games, to also not really playing Khalil Herbert. To the point that I just mentioned before, you're activating Travis Homer and you're not activating another offensive lineman that if you have a rash of injuries, you can turn to protect your rookie quarterback. Intimate knowledge of your personnel. At this time right now, I might have to go no on this one. Are we really maximizing the potential and talent of DJ Moore right now? Are we saying to ourselves, hey, look, Roma Dunze's made a couple plays in a row. Let's get him some more snaps and some more touches just in this game and see if we can ride the hot hand? Are we having moments where we're scratching our head and saying, gosh, why is Gerald Everett out there and not Cole Kmet? Are we saying to ourselves, why are we handing the ball off to Doug Kramer on the 1 yard line instead of a QB sneak, a run to Roshan Johnson, a run to DeAndre Swift, an end around to DJ Moore, a toss up to Keenan Allen? I mean, give me anything other than a handoff to Doug Kramer on the 1 yard line. Intimate knowledge of personnel with this coaching staff. As of right now, it's a no. And I'm not going to say that that is a damning quality. I mean, a lot of these guys, especially Shane Waldron, got hired this year as a first-time offensive coordinator with the Chicago Bears after spending several years as the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. So intimate knowledge, I got to put it as a no right now. But does that set up our rookie quarterback for ultimate success? It does not. So that's 1 for 4 right now. The next one, cap space and roster flexibility. I'm going to offer up a very, very, very slight yes on this one. I feel like the teacher that's probably trying to soften up the edges just a little bit. I'm not trying to grade this on a curve, but I think the Bears, for the most part, have done a good job of offering themselves up some cap space to go out and acquire some players. They don't really have the cap space right now to take on a huge contract if they were to trade for one at the deadline, but not many NFL teams do, especially the ones that are trying to compete. Roster flexibility. I do like what I see where if you're going to trade for Keenan Allen, he is going to be a free agent next year. You could possibly move on from him. At this point, I think the Chicago Bears do. We still have the second-round pick from the Carolina Panthers coming back. We do have what's looking more and more by the day like a sixth-round pick coming back in the Justin Fields trade. So they are going to have some ancillary bullets to spend in the draft next year. I hope they spend them all on offensive linemen. And I think they've done a pretty good job with their cap space to this point to go out there and continue to add and try and compete while you have a rookie on a rookie contract. This stuff is important. I know everyone wants to go out there and get Myles Garrett right now, but I will tell you some of that cap space and that roster flexibility will disappear if you make a huge move like that. Now, would I applaud the move? Sure, it makes the Chicago Bears better tomorrow, but in the grand scheme of things, whatever you do, if you went out and you got a Myles Garrett right now, if you went out and you got a Micah Parsons right now, that's it, Bears fans. That's all you're doing, not just this year, but probably next year in the offseason too as well. And you know you need to upgrade that offensive line. And I've said this before into the summer, and I love watching our defense play. I'm not going to go out there and say it's the most elite unit on the Galaxy. I think it's more of a top 12 unit. I mean, they got to show me a little bit more than that. If anything in this town, Chicagoans, we are defensive connoisseurs. We might not have ever really tasted a good quarterback burger before. We might not even know what that is, but we are the connoisseurs of defense here. And let's be honest, the Bears defense is good. They're not great. So if you're going to spend a ton of money, which they already have on that side of the ball, I think they're probably good over there. It's time to now start spending some money, big money, on the offensive line, on a left tackle, on maybe a center. Maybe you draft a guy, bring somebody in, but that unit needs to get better. So I'm going to give that a yes on that one. We got 2 more left. The other one is competent coaching, details, scheme. I'm just throwing it in there. And how we handle our timeouts and challenges. For a rookie quarterback checklist, this is an unequivocal no. When you have a rookie trying to learn the ropes, and I've been saying it all summer that we're going to see bumps in the road from Caleb Williams. Guess what? The Washington game was a bump in the road. He looked like a rookie. He was inaccurate. And let's be honest, when he's pressured, you can tell. Think of it, I almost think of it like a little bit like a golf analogy. When you're really not super sure about where your irons are right now. Man, I can maybe hit my 7 this long. Maybe I can hit my 5 a different distance. I'm not really trusting where my 9 iron is right now. I think for Caleb Williams right now, and I think it's actually an intelligent move, but it really is screwing with his accuracy. I think that when he's pressured, I think the number one thing that he doesn't want to do is leave the ball short. Because when you leave the ball short, it turns into a jump ball situation, and that's how balls get intercepted, and that's how turnovers happen. And Caleb, he's got 5 interceptions this year, but I think for a rookie, he's done a pretty decent job of protecting the football. So what happens then? If he feels the pressure, he's going to put that ball out there probably further than he would like. And that's why I think you're seeing these drastic overthrows right now. Of course, when any quarterback has a great pocket to play from, just like he did in the Jacksonville Jaguars game, you see the accuracy tighten up a little bit. If he knows he's not feeling the heat from behind him, he can add a little touch on a throw. He can manipulate it a little bit more. But when he's pressured, when he thinks someone's going to be knocking him into the center of his back on almost every play, and he was pressured 52% of the time on all of his snaps against Washington, and if you're trying to figure that out, this isn't a big math show, but that's a lot. I think the accuracy is tied to the pressure that he feels in the pocket. And as a rookie quarterback, I think he's just saying to himself, I'm going to put the ball out there and hope that my guy can run after and get it. Because if I'm underneath it, other guys, especially opposing players, can get it. And I think that's why he's long right now, and I think that's why he's inaccurate. And it all comes back to, do you have your details down? Do you have the competent coaching, the scheme, and all those little advantages that head coaches are supposed to be on top of? Do you have that buttoned up? You don't. Epic fail. And look, when we're talking about timeouts, we're talking about challenges, and we're talking about knowing your personnel. I'm sorry, but head coaches, that's a prerequisite in the NFL. That's not an additive. That's not an extra ingredient that goes, oh yeah, and by the way, he's really good at using his timeouts. No, that's a part of the job. That's part of being the CEO of the football team. And it's a glaring issue with Matt Eberflus and this Bears team right now. So I've got 7 things on my checklist right now. I got the Chicago Bears clicking only 2 of them. They're 2 of 6. We got 1 left. And this one, I'd love to have you comment and question below of where you lean on this one. The final one is with the QB checklist. For a rookie, stability at every level of the organization. And Bears fans, we know this really well. And I mentioned it before. We love to seem to never have anything aligned at the same time. And when I say aligned at the same time, you have your quarterback, you have your head coach, you have your general manager. In some cases, you have your president of football operations, and then you have your owner. Do you have all of these things aligned at the same time? Did all of these guys select the same people at the same time? For the most part, the Chicago Bears are relatively close. But when we talk about this Matt Eberflus situation, again, we're going back to some of the things that have plagued us as an organization in the past. Again, going back from Jerry Angelo trades for Jay Cutler, Lovie Smith, within 3 years, it's Phil Emery and it's Mark Trestman. Phil Emery actually pays Jay Cutler. But when Mark Trestman gets fired, he has a hard time hiring the next coach. Or excuse me, he gets fired, but Ryan Pace has a hard time hiring the next coach because he doesn't want Jay Cutler around. Ryan Pace hires John Fox because he's one of the few guys that will still have Jay Cutler on the team. Make that make sense. John Fox gets fired after having Mitch Trubisky for 1 year, and then a head coach comes in, Matt Nagy, who we'll never know whether he said, man, I love Mitch Trubisky. Or maybe Matt Nagy just said, man, I'd love that multi-million-dollar contract, and I'm fine working with Mitch Trubisky. If we know anything about Matt Nagy, he might have just sold him on it, right? And it's understandable. It's a human thing. Do you want to get paid? I'm not going to blame him. Yeah, I'll work with Mitch. Mitch is great. You kidding me? He's $3 million a year great. Oh, man, I'm going to make my basement amazing, says inner monologue Matt Nagy. And then what happens after that? They get rid of Mitch. They draft Justin. They sign Andy Dalton. That very next year, Pace and Nagy are out. Poles and Eberflus are in, but Justin Fields is still there. Meanwhile, a year after that, they hire Kevin Warren as president of football operations. And the only thing that never changes is George and Virginia and the McCaskies up top. Heading into this year, we did think that there was a level of stability at every level of the organization. Chicago Bears, we were hoping win double-digit games. They still can. Hoping that they go to the playoffs. They still can. Hoping that Caleb Williams is the quarterback of the future. I think that he is, but there's plenty more to see. But these in-game moments with Matt Eberflus, there are more examples piling up that he is just not the right guy. And if he isn't the right guy, guess what turns into a no in this situation? Stability at every level of the organization. So as of right now, I have to go no on this, which means that out of a rookie QB checklist of things that I think that are ideal to set up a rookie quarterback, a franchise quarterback for success over the next 5 years, let alone just this year, let alone just 7 games into his NFL career, I've got the Chicago Bears at 2-7 on that right now. Offensive line, no. Structured competence starts to give a rookie confidence early in a game, no. Running game, yes. Competent coaching, including detailed scheme, timeouts, and challenges, no. Intimate knowledge of personnel, no. Stability at every level of the organization. At this point, after this game, Washington game, I think that is leaning towards no just for right now. It can change. And then finally, cap space and roster flexibility, yes. So that's 2-7, man. And I talked about this last week. I think the important thing with any football team, any NFL season, especially the Chicago Bears, is I think we're trying to find what is the baseline for this team. You know, what is the talent level and what can we expect on a consistent week-to-week basis? I said after the Jaguars game heading into the bye week that we were getting very close to understanding what to expect on a week-to-week basis from this Bears team. And then they come out with this type of performance against Washington. And I have to tell you, that baseline has to either be lowered or there just isn't one right now. I still don't know which team is going to show up for this Bears team on a week-to-week basis. And a lot of it comes back to my inner fear that the head coach and also, by extension, the offensive coordinator is going to do something that really makes me scratch my head, that is out of the norm. That isn't just a prerequisite of what their job is. Blow a timeout. Don't use a timeout. Call a weird play. Not knowing your personnel very well. Making mistakes. And I got to tell you, it's not fair to the players right now. It's certainly not fair to us fans. And this is what's the bummer of the Chicago Bears continuously are stuck in. And as I'd mentioned, I get the opportunity, and I have for the last three and a half years. I get to do a show almost every single week with former Bears defensive end Corey Wooten. I've also had the opportunity to be around, and now out of just something that my 13-year-old self would absolutely adore, I get to call Alex Brown and Lance Briggs teammates, right? And I love being around them. And I hope they're not listening to this right now because, unfortunately, the Chicago Bears are still stuck in the exact same spot we've always been in, and this is why I talk about that baseline. There were years with those Bears teams, and I loved watching them every single week. Man, what a great defense that was. But, man, we would get to 6-2, 7-1, and have these impressive records. And locally, we would adore these Bears teams with really high hopes, and we would project out, man, if we could do this, that, can we win a playoff game? And I will tell you, for many years, while we locally had those high hopes, nationally, we were called pretenders. Nationally, for years and years and years, history lesson, Bears fans. Nationally, no one has really ever believed in the Chicago Bears. We can go hang out at bars and see each other and call ourselves contenders all we want to, but everyone across the nation would call us pretenders. And it always made me so mad and so frustrated. And there was a part of me that would always go, you know what? We're going to show them. Just you wait. We're the team no one wants to play. Wait till we get to the playoffs. Well, a lot of times we either peed down our own leg and didn't make those playoffs, and we consistently came up short. And unfortunately, that national perception was probably closer to reality than I think the Bears perspective and passion that they had for the team, thinking that they were contenders, tended to be true. And we're back at that same spot. I want to believe that this team is good. But again, I don't know what to expect from this team on a week-to-week basis. And therefore, my baseline has been lowered. I laid it out last week. We got these 3 games right now before the division gauntlet, plus San Francisco, plus Seattle comes into play. I said that we need to go at least 2-3 over our next 3 weeks to give ourselves a shot at this thing. This Washington game hurts because when you look at the grand landscape, the whole idea that we now lose the tiebreaker to Washington, that could definitely come back and bite us. But we can't worry about that anymore. We have to move on. And if it happens, we'll complain about it 2 or 3 months from now. What's really important right now is that we have to win these next 2 games against Arizona and against New England. We almost have to. There again, I'll walk you through it. It's very reasonable to say if we win the next 2 games and we move to 6-3, we split the division 3-3, and then we win either the Seattle game or we win the San Francisco game. I would like to believe it's easier to win that Seattle game at home than it is to win that San Francisco game on the road. But you just have to split it, go 1-1. That gets you to 10 wins. Double-digit wins at least gets you in the conversation of the playoffs. If we lose a tiebreaker, we'll see. But at least at that point, if they get to that 10 number, I think you can at least make more of a reasonable explanation if they decided to retain Matt Eberflus. I think you can wrap your head around it. I think 9-8 right now, or anything below that number, I think he's toast. I think they move on. Because you can't wait forever. You can't wait 2 or 3 years into Caleb's career and go, you know what, this Matt Eberflus thing, great guy, just didn't work out. No, it's a cutthroat business. It's the NFL. They need to figure that thing out right now. This year. Double-digit wins will hide a lot of the warts, will put a lot of makeup on the blemishes of Matt Eberflus's in-game inadequacies. But it starts right now with these 2 games with Arizona and New England. They got to pick up wins in this one. There's no 2 ways about it. You got to figure it out. Even with the bad offensive line, even with all these questions right now with your coaching staff. And I'm really curious to see how they respond. It isn't just about winning the game. There's a style point element to it that I'm really curious to see. Because right now, this type of loss, in just the manner and the way that it went about itself, it's starting to raise a lot of questions. I am not advocating that we fire Matt Eberflus right now. But I am saying, when you look at all the examples, good and positive, negative and troublesome, the negative and troublesome are starting to stack up in terms of whether this guy, good defensive coordinator, is he the CEO of the football team that's supposed to take you to where you want to go? And as Bears fans, I think that we deserve that place to go is playoffs every single year, competing for the Super Bowl, competing for the NFC title. It's what Bears fans deserve. I just don't know if Matt Eberflus can get us there. Time to wrap up here on Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos. You were listening to WLS AM 890. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday night. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I know I got a little upset, Bears fans, but we're in the thick of it right now. We're fighting for a playoff spot, and more importantly, we are fighting for what the grander future, bigger picture is for the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams. So it's important to have these conversations. You can follow me at Joey Sports Guy if you want to. On socials, you can also follow us at Sports Talk Chi, CHI. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the listen, Chicago. Have a wonderful Saturday night. You're listening to Sports Talk Chicago on WLS AM 890. I am Joey Christopoulos, and I will see you next week.